All right, welcome to the show today. Today I have Nik Brambring with me, and he's the CEO of zattoo. Now we're going to go right into your story, Nick. I'm very curious about your background, your story, your personal story, your leadership story, and how you came to basically where you are today. So let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit more about who is Nick and what is the story that got you to where we are today.
Thanks for asking. I'm actually well prepared for that question because over Christmas I spent time with my parents and my two uncles were there. And one of them is a lawyer, and he said, "Well, you studied law and you basically wasted it by, not doing what a lawyer does now. So how come?" And my story, I guess, starts when I was 16, 17. What I really loved is movies, also music videos, not only to watch them, but to produce them. Yeah. And not on a professional level, obviously, but just for fun with friends. And right after school, I thought about going into that industry directly. And I would say my father, without telling me, but more with asking me good questions, probably convinced me to first do something that might be a more stable fundament, let's say. So I planned to study economy and law, ended up with law. I did economy also later on. And I kind of prolonged that detour from what I really wanted to do. Looking back, I probably prolonged it for too long. Yeah. So I did my PhD in law, my second state exam, and then I joined a strategy consulting firm, Boston Consulting. But I never lost that goal of going into the TV business. Yeah. So I didn't become a producer or a director, but at least I'm in the TV business now. I joined zattoo, saw that they are looking for somebody 11 years ago when they were still a startup. One of my colleagues back then is also an INSEAD MBA alum like myself. That's how I joined, first focusing on doing content deals, so negotiating with TV stations, collecting societies, the rights that we need to do our service that we do with zattoo. And then moved on, taking responsibility for the ads business, and then for zattoo as a company.
Very interesting, especially this passion for entertainment, TV, movies. I, I mean, can you recall like what was it there, or what is it today still that gets you excited about TV, digital TV, about this whole world of movies and entertainment?
I guess I like good stories. As a kid, it was Star Wars. Yeah, so I was a huge Star Wars fan. One of my friends had an uncle with two video recording machines, early 80s, so that was phenomenal. And he copied Star Wars, so we could watch it as often as we wanted. So I probably watched, I don't know, 30, 40 times or so. And I also liked series. I like sports. As a kid, I was pretty much a TV junkie, I would say. Now there's not so much time left, but I still like the medium, the diversity of what can be done, the platform for storytellers.
It's very interesting. I'm always inspired, to hear the why of those kinds of things, because there's always reasons why people are involved in what they're involved in, especially people who are passionate and they're driven and they're high performing, people like you. And it's always interesting, because, some people may, I'm just imagining like, parents looking at the children who always watch TV and who always like, you're wasting your eyes and your days. And, this is never going to be, of value in the future for you. Well, here's a different
Course,
story.
partly true. I mean, not every afternoon series was necessarily valuable for what I'm doing now. Uh, um, so I think a good mix is something that I would look for with my children too. Yeah.
Very much. Very
But
much agree.
regarding inspiration, I actually remember a similar question of whom inspired you. And I think most answered, Jack Welch and management giants that indeed are super inspiring when you read their books or listen to them. But came to for myself was more Bud Spencer, Sean Connery, people I admired when I was young, and that I enjoy being at least involved in distributing what they did.
Yeah, I remember Bud Spencer movies. Definitely, yeah. So, you over the past 11 years since you joined zattoo, basically zattoo become, from a startup into a fairly large SME business. You get about 250 people right now, correct?
We have 120 roughly.
Sorry, 120. Yes, exactly. So you transitioned from a startup into 120 people company over the past 11 years, and then obviously there's lots of challenging stories that come with it, right? What are some of the key things, if you can maybe point out one or two things that you have worked on over the past 11 years in this transition of becoming basically an SME organization that you feel were the biggest accomplishments for the organization and also yourself as a leader?
Yeah. So obviously we didn't get to the 120 by adding 10 each year. It was not linear. So then I would probably pick, I need to do this. So the lights go on. There's some automation. Lights off after a while, so I should probably talk more vividly, then that doesn't happen. So the one is after a big crisis that we went through in 2008. It's a year when other companies also went through a crisis, Lehman Brothers and bank crisis. It hit us in a phase when we aggressively expanded. Back then, we had a pure business-to-consumer model, us bringing TV to people, as a pure free product and advertising finance. And we managed to get rights for 8 countries. We got into 8 countries, but none of these countries we made money. So the typical, I would say, more the American approach, get users, burn money, and mid 2008 was not a great time to raise money for such a model where you had zero proof for your business, and you not even had proof for anywhere in the world somebody made money with distributing TV over the internet the way we do it. It was really a pioneer work, and ironically, pioneer work is actually seen more critically than if you just try to copy businesses. So anyway, surviving that, I would say, was a big accomplishment that we as zattoo did. We went down from roughly 60 to 15 people. We closed down markets, we renegotiated contracts. So that was a tough phase, and at least we survived. Yeah, and the years after, we grew very, very slowly in terms of people, but we grew in terms of revenues and we got profitable. So really going through that phase of doing more like the traditional way, getting your Swiss francs and euro together to pay your bills and make a profit. I think that was really good for zattoo, and obviously without it, zattoo wouldn't exist anymore. And then being able to switch to a more aggressive growth course again, which a lot of outsiders, I think, didn't expect from zattoo. It's like, okay, they are around for already. Back then it was more like 7-8 years. It's an okay company, nice what they did, great pioneer work and so on. But after 7, 8 years, not a really big thing, so forget about it. But we really managed to grow more aggressively, to add a subscription business very successfully, and also to add a B2B business where we basically license our product to partners as a white label, especially network operators. So, I mean, the ones who just launched is 1&1 in Germany, a huge ISP, who introduced a TV product completely based on zattoo. So these are big things that we now got to. And I would say that's a huge accomplishment that our team achieved over the last years.
I love that. I love those very specific moments of the phases that you pointed out. In general, are there very specific challenges that you can point out that had to be overcome, either business challenges or, mindset challenges or culture challenges or leadership challenges, or anything there that you feel, okay, these were, in order for us to actually have been successful with these changes, these things had to be overcome?
I would probably start with the mindset, because that's what needs to change first, right? And both examples are probably also good examples for that. I mean, first you need to change from boom, grow, open up new markets to now cut markets, cut costs, turn every penny around. That was a big shift. And I mean, some people had to leave, some people left because they say, hey, that's not what I signed up for. Fair enough. And the challenges following that in that first phase are very hands-on, very more like a craft than an art. Yeah, do your stuff. And then again, a mind shift change that said, hey, in order to be able to get partners like 1&1, we also have other big partners on the B2B side. We announced our first deal in the US. I mean, that's now stuff that we achieved this year. But in order to even have a chance to get there, you need to take risks again. Yeah. And the mind after this crisis of nearly, dying and then surviving and getting to profitability and getting respect for it, to then again take a risk that might have, led to another crisis. I think that was an important mind shift. And what follows is then less of just a craft, because there's so many unknown. Yeah, how do you sell the product? How does the product have to look like in order also not only to work for our users but for users of our B2B customers, etc. So we got better, and we are still working on it to really understand what we need to do next. And that's not like super visionary in terms of, okay, we need to foresee the TV future in 10 years. But it definitely has to do with anticipating what we need in the next years.
Definitely. I mean, that's a big one, going through such a crisis, burns certain things into your brain and into your belief system, and then going back into risk-taking mode is a major challenge. And not only, as an individual, but also letting the organization live that culture one more time. That is huge, right?
We still had years after and I mean, there's also something very positive in this, hey, let's turn the pennies around, be very careful attitude. But you need to watch out that what you hardwired into the company over years doesn't lead to somebody saying, yeah, I didn't order the new server because I wanted to save $20,000, although the old one is running for 5 years and, the system depends on it. So I think we did overall a good job of balancing that, of not, falling into the other extreme. Now, yeah, let's fly business and throw big parties, but to take more risk, to accept that if you want to grow fast and be very effective, that you will not be 100% efficient. Yeah, there is a clash of interest, and you need to make sure you need to accept that and need to find the right balance.
That's a big one. If you want to be effective, you're not going to be 100% efficient, in a sense, like not everything's going to be perfect and all done and all work done every day at the end before you go home and all these kinds of things, right? Because it's sort of like, sometimes we can fall into those traps and then lose out on the effectiveness. I love that. So I want to switch a bit more into the present with, where you're at right now and what's going on. So what are some of the most exciting things that you work on right now?
So there's actually a lot of cool stuff on the product side that we are working on. Also a lot of details, but I would say that the shift that we have already successfully started last year is from bringing zattoo out of the corner that we have been in for a long time, namely a nice browser version or a nice app for your mobile TV usage, which is a nice addition to your cable subscription, to get into a position where it's an alternative. Yeah, if you have good internet access, an Apple TV box or Amazon Fire or any smart TV, you don't need a cable subscription. You also don't need satellite. In Switzerland, satellite is not very popular anyway. In Germany, satellite is still huge. I think 40% of people use satellite. So if you have an internet connection anyway, there's a much nicer way with these devices. They are not just the same over the internet. They bring you advantages that nobody else can bring. You can only have that over the internet. Personalization, multi-screen, and of course time shift, to get your individual stream when you want that. Satellite or cable don't give that to you. So we are doing a lot around the big screen. We just brought out a new app for Apple TV. We have a very successful Amazon Fire app in Germany and a great partnership with them, including promotions. What we are doing now is make sure that the interconnection between your mobile phone and your big screen works better. Because honestly, we've seen that some competitors are better than us in terms of swiping your content to the big screen. And I mean, we had that swipe function for a while, but to make it really nice, to give you some info here, swipe it over, get it back, and so on. There's a lot of detail work where you want really strong product people, design people, obviously developers implementing it then. And that's something that we spent a lot of time on to really make usability better. So that's on the product side. And then on the business side, we have these two pillars that we are based on, and that's B2C and B2B. They are not contradicting each other. On the contrary, our vision is to bring better TV experience to people. And whether it's our brand on that TV app, or if it's somebody else's brand, but it's completely our service and the experience that we deliver, we are agnostic. So if we have a million new B2B end users, that's also great. For B2C, what we really need or want and need to do is grow our subscriber base. So people who are willing to pay, not to who just consume zattoo free and get advertising. That's great, but to become a real alternative to cable, we want them to pay for our service and cancel their old subscription. So that's a big goal for this year to grow in subscriptions. And then on the business to business side, we landed some really great deals last year. So Prio 1 is to serve these customers really, really well. And Prio 1B is to add some more, because we have an attractive pipeline. We have potential customers that are super exciting, that fit into our strategy. That's always important. We don't want to have customers who have a completely different vision from the product side. We don't want to become an agency who just build what others think makes sense, but we build a product and we look for customers who also like that product. And that approach is very successful.
Love that. Now, one thing I love the most is what you pointed out with the vision, is basically saying, the best or the much better TV experience. If you could point, or if you could paint the picture of what that ultimately would look like for you, and I guess we're also already switching into future, basically talking a little bit about that. What would that look like if you could just have any canvas in front of you and paint the picture and say, this is the ultimate experience that I envision for consumer in the near future to have with their entertainment, with their TV?
Yeah. So talking of the near future, I would come back to the 3 points that I see as key differentiators to traditional TV. And then I have one little thing on top, looking a bit more into the future, but something I've seen already during our hack days that we did a few months ago. So 3 points. One is multi-screen. That's something that is not something new for us. It's basically something that we started with, TV also on your PC, and then of course also on your mobile phone, etc. So that's not very visionary. It will just continue. We also brought zattoo on the Microsoft virtual reality glasses and stuff like that. It's that is still a bit of a innovation, more for fun than for real impact. But of course, we follow where people have a screen, and then we bring TV to it. So also glasses, that combine virtual with real, so this augmented reality stuff. So that's something that we just follow. We are, in that regard, we are not the ones who create new screens, stuff like that. Second point, time shift. That's something that we do for a long time in Switzerland, because the legal environment is favorable. You can do that without problems. In Germany, it's very complex to get all your rights together, but it's something that we are working on. So we introduced that you can at least watch the show that's currently running from the start, but not for all channels. So we want to have it for all channels. We introduced a net PVR. You can record your personal recordings in the cloud. Again, something we don't have for all channels. So in that regard, technology is already far advanced. Our main challenge is to get the partners who also again have contracts with right owners, to get regulators to a point to close that big gap that you currently have between what's possible and what users want, and what's legally possible and available. So that's something that we will work on, that will probably still take a while, at least in Germany, to get to a point where you can really give users what they want. In Switzerland, we have 7-day catch-up across all channels. I think that's great already. The third point is something that we are still very weak on, but we are investing in, and that's personalization. To really give meaningful recommendations. We do give recommendations, but they are more like, most people watch this movie, so it might be interesting for you. Yeah? And then we also look at profiles like, okay, you watch a lot of sports, so maybe you get the newsletter with sports event. But there's obviously so much you can do, because I think we have 150 channels in Switzerland, nearly 100 in Germany, and there is a lot of great stuff. I need to do this wave thing one more. A lot of great stuff on these channels, and a lot is just hidden. And to get into our users' mind more, and really give them a meaningful recommendation, maybe also with social and could say now we have a great solution, but there's a lot of steps in that direction. So that would be these 3 points. And then to just give a little example, something I would have probably not come up with a year ago. Other people more visionary than me, I guess. But in these hack days, our colleagues did an Alexa voice-controlled TV. And first you might think, okay, you have your remote control or your mobile phone and so on. It's a nice gimmick. But then you start seeing, okay, Alexa, take me to RTL. You don't need to push a number or look for it. When you see it, it's so obvious that this is much nicer, much easier. Yeah. Or show my recordings, play Game of Thrones. You don't need to look for Game of Thrones or type it in or so. It's fantastic. So again, we are certainly not the pioneers in voice control, but it's important that we understand what's going on and how we can make use of that for zattoo. Still an internal prototype for anybody who would look for a voice-controlled zattoo, but it's definitely coming. And I would say that's our job, not to invent all these things, but to watch out what's happening and how we can use it for the benefit of our users.
I really love that. I mean, there's 2 sort of like things that I see really still be, I mean, all around the world and in most services, they're still fairly rudimental. I mean, I think, voice control, I think about my Siri on my iPhone. It's so dumb. I mean, every time I use it, I'm frustrated because it's so dumb. It can't even do the slightest bit of intelligent work, right? And it's AI. Well, so there's a lot of work to be done there, but it's probably also this is one area that you're investing in, that you're moving forward as well. The other one is this recommendation piece. I quickly want to dive into this slightly because, recommendations, it started like, okay, so you watch a lot of sports movies or series, so here's some more sports series. Like, well, that's fairly fundamental. And then Amazon came along, right? And then Netflix came along, and they figured out pretty well. But we're consumers. If I look at myself as a consumer, we have such high expectations now of these things because we say, well, technology is so far advanced. Why can't I just get recommendations that are not just based on tags and keywords and just like a very structural data, basically, or not data, but very like just categories, just like basic stuff, but very, very deeply rooted things that are about personality, about which pieces of a series that I actually enjoy most, which characters that I may enjoy, and things like that. So where do you feel we're going with that? Do you feel in the near future it's going to be possible to collect and use such data effectively, or do you feel like it's going to take ages for us to work on that?
I fear my answer is not very innovative. I definitely think it's coming, and not in the far future. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's already there, again, exactly, you have that feeling. Yeah, you use Netflix, Spotify, think, hey, great, and then you use your cable TV box that's like this size, eats energy like a fridge, and is just a nightmare to use. And that's the user you want to deal with. I think that's also our chance with our B2C offering to say, hey guys, just get an internet connection, and then you have zattoo as an app or you know, a browser version on your smart TV, wherever. And now coming back to your recommendation, yes, I think these recommendations will take basically everything they can. Yeah, you look at what you like. You look at what you chose. We look at what you watched and what you watched until the end. And that's an approach that I've seen. What my colleagues did is they compared your pattern with other people's pattern, and then they looked at what these people also liked and watched, what's still missing for you. And there were some astonishingly good results with that. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, you like to watch that football match and this guy also watched it. It's really like a combination. It's like, I don't know, 400 dimensions, something like that. Yeah. Where you would say, okay, these things all fit together, and then there's a high chance that you will also like that. So I think I mean, an Amazon will probably combine what you buy, and Facebook would combine what you liked and who your friends are, etc. And all of that will increase the chance of a good recommendation.
I just thank you so much for going in there. Like, just, you know, one thing you mentioned, Spotify, you know, it's just an interesting example. I always remember this. Like, at one point I was listening to classical music on my headphones and really doing some concentrated work. And I don't just have the free subscription, right? So there was an ad, and it was actually for a heavy metal band. And I was like, you know, I was listening to classical music, and the ad was like, what the hell just happened? And it was just like, you know, this saying of, you know, for a long time, content and just content was king, and now content and context are king together. And this is going in a really interesting direction. Also, what you mentioned with you know, Facebook, Amazon, with these huge data collections that we have now. Do you think, it's just from your own personal expectations or opinion, do you feel at one point we're going to end up in a more open future where it's going to be like, okay, Facebook's going to say, okay, guys, you know, our API is a lot more open, and you know, there's more data that we provide, so that you can work with that data a much more closer with your own service, and those kinds of integrations across, you know, the big four in digital and even beyond. Do you feel that it's going to go more in that direction, or even more in a more competitive direction with data and sharing and things like that?
Yeah. Great question. In the moment, I would say the tendency is not to be very open, unless, let's say, openness within a certain world, right? So, of course, I mean, Google has, I think, a great strategy of being very open with a lot of stuff, as long as you use, you know, their OS, so everybody can produce Android phones and so on. But then you probably have the Google Shop and Google Ads and so on. And I think Facebook has probably a fairly similar approach, some differences. But Amazon is rather closed, I would say. But I don't have anything to add beyond the obvious. I would say it would be great if there's more open. Now coming back maybe to our industry, yeah, TV and movies. you would think that because for the user it makes sense to have one platform and the entire world in front of you, that eventually there has to be such a solution and everybody gets their fair share. But you see what's happening. Netflix is producing exclusive stuff. Amazon is producing exclusive stuff. Still, the TV stations are very strong in content, produce their stuff. And you also have pay TV, Sky. If you want sports, you also need DAZN, who has some stuff now. Amazon might get some exclusive sports rights for Premier League even. Disney wants to launch its own Netflix competitor. So you need probably, without exaggeration, like a dozen services to get your content. And I just see what's happening now, and that's the contrary of more and more open and, one platform. And I don't see any tendencies of that going the other way.
It's really interesting to see the inside, because you're very much on the inside of that within the industry, and it's really interesting to hear your sense of where it's going. And you're right, it's. I mean, the question is it really user centric? Well, maybe it's more a shareholder centric than user centric right now, but maybe at one point it will have to change anyway. Thank you so much for diving into these areas. It's very interesting, like what you guys are working on, what the industry's working on with voice control, with recommendations, which are probably some of the biggest pieces that we're going to see in the near future evolve and become a lot better and a lot more user friendly. So I'm just curious, like if people out there say zattoo, awesome company, either from a rights perspective, from a partner perspective, from an investment perspective, from a talent perspective, what's the best place to learn more about zattoo, more about the things you're working on, the kind of cool stuff you're producing and creating?
Not sure if I got the question. So somebody would like to join the company, or somebody
join the company, learn more about what you're working on exactly, and just get a better sense of who is zattoo, what are these guys doing, what are some of the things, the projects, what is happening over the next couple of years with the company.
Yeah, well, it's not like we try to be transparent about our plans. Internally, we try to be as transparent as possible. Externally, I would say we are very interested in companies who want to partner with us, who want to take our product and combine it with an internet service, for instance. We are always looking for great people, and of course, part of it is us pitching to these people and talking about stuff that maybe I've talked about now, of what our vision for TV looks like. And then, of course, there's a lot of tactical planning for this year, of how we want to generate revenues, how we want to beat competitors, etc. I would say there is no way to learn about that unless you start becoming a zattoo employee.
No, that's clear. I was more thinking about, general about zattoo. Probably the website is a good place for connecting with you. Maybe LinkedIn is a good place.
For sure, exactly. On our website, there's already a lot of stuff explaining our product. The best way to find out is just to use it, much better than any explanation. Also on our website, there's some stuff about our team. There's actually some great videos on the zattoo team that we produced half a year ago. I think they give a great reflection of our spirit. Yes, you'll find us, people at zattoo on LinkedIn and Crossing, etc. And I'm sure you'll get quick answers and openness to talk. We're always interested in talking to people who share our passion and our interest.
Love it. So thank you so much for doing this interview. Thank you for sharing, your story. your vision for where things are heading, and a bit more about the company and the culture and the spirit. So really appreciate that. Thank you for being on the show.